If you keep calling this burnout, there's a good chance it's actually a quiet overfunctioning crash. High performers rarely explode on cue. You keep functioning past your limits, and your system starts shutting doors in silence, long before your life looks obviously broken. Most people picture crashing as public collapse, missed deadlines, tears in meetings, a dramatic exit. So when your work still gets done, you assume you're fine. That reading makes sense. It also keeps you from noticing the slower kind of depletion. Another common frame is discipline. You tell yourself you're resilient, committed, reliable. Other people often reward that interpretation because your steadiness protects their comfort too. So the pattern hides inside praise. You get called strong, while your inner signals get quieter and harder to trust. Research on interoception helps here. Interoception is your brain's ability to read internal body signals like hunger, tension, fatigue, and activation. When stress stays high for long stretches, that signal reading can get distorted. You register the task list faster than the tightening in your chest. Polyvagal theory, associated with Stephen Porges, offers another useful lens. Your nervous system constantly tracks cues of safety and threat. Achievement becomes one of those safety cues. Productivity starts acting like regulation, so slowing down can feel less restful than exposed. Elaine Aron's work on high-sensitivity processing also matters. Some people take in more detail, more social information, more nuance. In a very real way, that can support excellent performance. It also means your system may reach overload sooner, especially when you've learned to override your own thresholds. So, the quiet crash often starts with a bargain. You become highly skilled at performing stability before you actually feel stable. That earns approval, reduces conflict, and keeps life moving. Over time, your body learns that usefulness comes first, and internal signals can wait. Then, efficiency gets fused with self-protection. You answer the email fast, solve the problem early, soften the room. Anticipate the need. Sometimes this resembles the fawn response. The goal is not people-pleasing in a shallow sense. The goal is lowering friction before friction can reach you. Another mechanism is attachment system regulation. If closeness, approval, or belonging once felt conditional, competence can become a relational strategy. You stay needed, so you stay connected. Peter Fonagy's work around mentalizing helps explain why stress can narrow self-reflection right when you need it most. The pattern persists because it works, right up until it doesn't. Your default mode network, involved in self-referential thought, can get crowded by rumination when your body is under strain. So instead of noticing depletion clearly, you think harder about fixing yourself. More analysis, less actual recovery. This looks deceptively polished. You are the one who can absorb the extra project, smooth the client call, rewrite the deck at 11:40 p.m. Then one morning, the screen feels strangely far away. You are still typing, but the mind-body link has gone dim. In intimate relationships, you may stay worn, attentive, and emotionally literate on the surface, while privately growing numb. You keep asking the good questions. You remember the details. But contact starts feeling like another role to maintain, and resentment leaks in as fatigue instead of anger. With family, the pattern often sounds like being the reasonable one. You are the translator, the peacemaker, the sibling who calls back first. Everyone trusts your capacity. Few people ask about your cost. So you keep carrying more than your share and call it maturity. In friendships, it can show up as disappearing politely. No fight, no dramatic explanation. You just stop initiating because every text feels like one more open tab. Then guilt arrives and the apology spiral starts. You feel behind on affection the way you feel behind on email. The first reframe is simple. Your feeling is real. Your first interpretation might not be. The heaviness is not proof that you are lazy, ungrateful, or failing at adulthood. Often, it is a backlog of ignored body data asking for a slower translation. This week, try naming the state before naming the story. 3 times a day, pause for 10 seconds and ask, what is my body doing right now? Tight jaw, flat chest, buzzing arms, foggy eyes, concrete signals first, meaning later. That small order matters. A second practice is a 2-minute downshift before decisions. Longer exhale than inhale. Unclench your hands. Let your gaze widen to include the room. Then ask one precise question. Am I about to do this from capacity, fear, or habit? Different answers create different kinds of lives. Years of living around this pattern taught me something tender. Quiet crashers are often admired for traits that were built under pressure. Reliability, insight, speed, emotional range. These are real strengths. They just become expensive when your system believes rest has to be justified. You may have learned early that needs are easier to carry when they are translated into usefulness. Need help? Be impressive first. Need space? Earn it first. Need care? Minimize the inconvenience. So exhaustion becomes easier to admit than longing, grief, or fear. A lot of high performers are not disconnected from emotion because they lack depth. Sometimes alexithymia-like moments show up under stress because the inner channel gets overloaded. The body knows something is wrong. Language arrives late, so you say, "I'm just tired," because tired is available. That is why the crash can look oddly clean. No broken plates, no public spiral. Just a drop in joy, imagination, libido, patience, and reach. Life narrows, music does less, weekends feel too short before they begin. You start protecting energy with a seriousness that scares you. There is often grief underneath this. Grief for how long you have been translating distress into competence. Grief for the version of you who kept believing one more completed thing would finally create enough safety to rest. So much effort, so little permission. I've also learned that shame keeps the pattern alive more than workload alone. When you think the problem is moral weakness, you hide earlier. You recover in secret. You keep your answers bright. Name the pattern. Lower the shame. Then your energy stops being a private courtroom. Sometimes people around you genuinely do not see the strain. That does not always mean they are uncaring. Quiet competence is hard to read from the outside. Your nervous system is making sense, even when your life doesn't. It adapted to make struggle look manageable. This is where many people wait for a grand fix, a resignation, a retreat, a perfect morning routine. Sometimes change is smaller and less glamorous. One honest no, one delayed reply, one meal eaten before the task, one evening where usefulness is not your identity. You may notice fear when you soften. That matters. If productivity has been regulating attachment, status, or self-worth. Rest can initially feel unsafe instead of soothing. This is why harsh self-talk backfires. Your system reads it as more threat and doubles down on output. A gentler approach works better. Regulate first, interpret second, decide third. That might mean feet on the floor before email, hand on chest before the apology text, 5 slower breaths before volunteering again. Small acts, repeated, teach your body that pause does not equal danger. The goal is not becoming less capable. It is becoming easier to find while you are being capable. You keep your competence, but you stop using it to disappear from yourself. The room gets quieter inside. Choice returns with them. So if your collapse has been subtle, if your life still looks intact while something inward is thinning out, you are not failing because your pain came in a high-functioning shape. You may be meeting the cost of surviving by staying useful for too long. Take a breath, name the pattern, and I'll see you in the next one. Which one of these landed too close to home?